Mimikyu is actually not bad at all. In fact, sometimes it can even beat our current best ghost type berry specialist, that is Banette. Welcome back to another Pokemon Sleep video, it's Bro Vinny here. In today's video, we're going to do a deep dive on Mimikyu and the new main skill, Disguise Berry Burst. For those of you who just want a summary, well, Mimikyu is a fairly good ghost type berry producer, as long as its favorite berry, for example at Old Gold Power Plant or at Green Grass if you roll ghost types. In fact, in certain situations, it actually does beat Banette, our current best ghost type berry producer. Unfortunately, it's met with a few hurdles. Being a single stage Pokemon means you're going to have to invest 5 main skill seeds to see a respectable return of its skill productions. In addition to that, unlike other skill specialists like Ampharos, who mainly rely on their skill level, not the Pokemon level, Mimikyu actually relies on its Pokemon level as well. The berries produced by Berry Burst, more than half of them come from Mimikyu itself. So if your Mimikyu is low level, even if you've invested your main seeds to make it level 6 main skill, its berry power production is going to be low. And the third issue is, of course, being a single stage Pokemon, it will cost you 16 friendship points to catch one Mimikyu, so the hunt for a good Mimikyu can be difficult if you compare to the likes of Shuppet. So on the balance of all factors, I don't think it's really worth getting a Mimikyu when you could catch Shuppet. Yes, we do expect Mimikyu to outdo Banette, but unfortunately, due to the expense and the resources required to invest in a Mimikyu, it may not be the best idea. First, let's take a quick look at Mimikyu's stats. Mimikyu has a base speed of 41 minutes and 40 seconds, which is respectable. It is a little slower than Gengar at 36 minutes, but it's faster than the berry specialist Banette at 43 minutes. It has the lowest ingredient rate of the 3, so in combination with a decent speed, it actually is more akin to being a dual specialist where it can produce berries as well. But you might ask, does it really matter what the berry production of Mimikyu is since it's a skill specialist? Well, it actually does, because its skill is basically berry production, but in larger chunks, which we'll come to in a moment. But let's finish looking at the stats for Mimikyu first. Now, Mimikyu is not an ingredient specialist, and with its low ingredient rate, it's not really going to be a useful coffee farmer, even though it does have coffee. Unfortunately, it only produces 1 coffee at level 30 and 2 coffees at level 60. Alright, let's have a look at the new skill, Disguise Berry Burst, and see how it actually works. The description says you get 2 chunks of berries. The first lot of berries are actually based on Mimikyu itself, plus a second lot of berries which are based on other Pokemon on your team, and they're listed in this format on Rainonix calculator. At level 1, you get 8 Mimikyu berries. Now, unfortunately, Berry Finding S doesn't actually help Berry Burst. Berry Finding S would help if this said production as opposed to berries. So in the case of Helper Boost, like the legendary Pokemon, it says you get an X amount of help from the other Pokemon, which can be berries or ingredients, but each help would incorporate Berry Finding S. In contrast, this skill ignores whether that Pokemon is a berry specialist or if it's a Berry Finding S Pokemon or not. It simply takes 1 berry for every 1 number here from that Pokemon. So Mimikyu itself will produce 8 berries when this skill triggers, and then each member on the team will give you 1 berry. So in total, you'll actually get 12 berries. And that's irrespective of how fast your team is, also irrespective of whether any of your teammates have Berry Finding S. Once again, in contrast to the legendary Pokemon with Helper Boost, where the speed doesn't matter, but whether they have Berry Finding S does. So at level 1, you get about 12 berries per trigger, but at level 6, you're looking at 41 berries. Why 41? Well, that's because you get 5 berries from each team member, plus 21 berries of itself, which is the ghost type berry. Interestingly enough, if you were running Metronome, it should be based on the berries of the Metronome user. And I've seen one person say that they've triggered Disguise Berry Burst and it produced fairy berries from their Togetic. And it's crucial that you understand this difference between its own berries and the berries from its team. 20 berries from its team, 21 berries from itself, so more than half the berries come from Mimikyu itself, meaning that if Mimikyu's Pokemon level is low, and you should know by now that the Pokemon level is very important to the berry strength output, so if your Mimikyu isn't level 50 or 60 at a very high level, at least matching that of your other berry specialists for comparison purposes, even if you invest all the seeds, it's just not going to be super strong. And I can show you here as an example. You can see my Mimikyu triggered twice, and then it auto-fed all the berries that came from Berry Burst. Now, some of the berries are fairly high strength. The 295 that you see there and the 220 are the berries from my other teammates. But despite Blueberry, the ghost type berry, being the favorite, it's only feeding Snorlax 154 strength. And that's because my Mimikyu is only level 23. So if it weren't favorite berry, it would be even worse than what you saw. The only reason I'm having it on my team is for testing purposes, otherwise it's not the strongest member of this team. Thankfully, the other 20 berries from these second lot of berries are farming those of my strong teammates, several of which are currently favorite berry. My Gengar, for example, at level 52 for the same berry compared to Mimikyu's level 23. Let's take a look at the berry strength of a level 23 Blueberry, and that's 48 strength without area bonus, but at level 52, it is 92 strength. So the strength is almost double. So if you just started the game, a Pokemon like Mareep, if you invested 4 main seeds on it to make it level 7 main skill, it would be doing a huge amount of strength because there's no rank requirements for you to unlock the highest main skill level as long as you have enough main skill seeds. In contrast, a high Pokemon level requires that you have the appropriate ranks unlocked. So your berry specialist will continue to improve throughout the game as you unlock higher level caps. Mimikyu though will require that you have both the main skill seeds available to invest in it, as well as having that level 50 and 60 unlocked and having enough Mimikyu candies and dream shards in order to raise it all the way. Okay, so resources aside, is Mimikyu actually strong if we give it the maximum potential? Well, let's take a look. I've put in here a team of only level 60 Pokemon and Mimikyu also at level 60, and we're going to focus on skill level 6, which is the current maximum for Disguise Berry Burst. In contrast, Charge Strength M can go to level 7. As I said before, each trigger will have Mimikyu farm 21 of its own berries, 5 from each teammate, making a total of 20 other berries. And what I've done here is added the total berry strength of 21 level 60 Blueberries with 20 berries of the average strength of all berries. The average berry strength of all berries is about 123. The Blueberry berry strength at level 60 is 112. And combining the total strength of all of these berries, we get about 4,813 strength at base. Now that may not seem like very much because if we look at Charge Strength M, Ampharos's level 7 skill will produce 6,409 strength. So if it's not favorite berry, Mimikyu is actually quite a bit weaker than Ampharos, which means that per trigger, Mimikyu is significantly worse if it's not favorite berry for the entire team. But hang on, it's actually worse than that because Mimikyu's skill trigger rate is worse than Ampharos. And after adjusting for the skill trigger rate, relatively speaking, Ampharos will trigger 30% more than Mimikyu. So we're going to add a 1.3 times multiplier to the Charge Strength M triggers, giving Ampharos 8,327 strength every time Mimikyu triggers once. Where Mimikyu shines is when it's favorite berry. So let's take Old Gold Power Plant for example. Let's assume the entire team is favorite berry. Then the strength improves a lot because the entire skill will double in strength, up to 9,600 strength every trigger. Relatively speaking, even with a higher trigger rate of Ampharos will lose out to Mimikyu despite having a higher skill trigger rate and even a higher skill level. Of course, it's not necessarily as simple as that, because sometimes blueberries may be favorite and the rest of the team not, or vice versa. One of the good things about Berry Burst is that it ignores the speed of your teammates. In other words, if your teammates farm slow berries like Belluberry or Yachi Berry, the Steel and Dragon type berries, where the farmers are usually of a lower speed, well, Mimikyu will ignore their speed and farm you equal amounts of berries. In those situations, can we actually improve on Mimikyu? Well, why don't we take the strongest berry for example, and that's Dragon Berry. Now currently there's no island for it, so that we're going to take a theoretical over at Greengrass where Dragon Berry is a favorite berry. Once again, we're going to focus on level 6 main skill. This time we have 21 blueberries and 20 dragon berries. Of course, dragon berries being significantly higher than the average berry, the total strength even without favorite goes up. Unfortunately, still not beating out on Amphiros's charge strength M. Where it does beat it by a better margin than before is if both dragon and blueberries are favorite, this time going up to 10,000 in strength, compared to what was 8,300 on the charge strength M. But what if we encountered a situation where we're at Greengrass Isle and only dragon berries are favorite? And that would be probably one of the more common scenarios we would consider using Mimikyu, because what we want to know is if Mimikyu can improve the rest of the team, even if itself is not favorite berry. So let's take our best example here with Dragon Berry. If we only have Dragon being favorite berry, so only the 20 berries getting the 2 times multiplier, then we get about 8,300 strength. Which by the way is almost exactly the same as Ampharos at level 7 main skill, which is interesting. So in a way, at best case scenario, if Mimikyu is not itself a favorite berry, but it is boosting the rest of the team by farming their berries which are favorite, the best case scenario running the strongest berry just matches that of Ampharos in strength. So you can pretty much see why at the start of the video I said that as long as you're at Old Gold Power Plant or it is a ghost favorite berry week, well, Mimikyu is not going to see a lot of power output, with a huge range in strength production anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000. Now at this point you might have noticed that, hang on, I could be using Mimikyu with a full ingredient team. If you run an ingredient focused account where sometimes the berries are matched as favorite berries on your ingredient specialist, well, since Mimikyu's skill doesn't require that the team be berry specialists for its skill to be a good berry producer, it's almost like Mimikyu is giving berry finding as an extra sub-skill to all of your ingredient specialists. Does Mimikyu enable an ingredient team to be stronger and stay on the field for longer? Well, unfortunately in most cases, where ingredient Pokemon are left at the breakpoints of level 30 or level 60 and not raised beyond those breakpoints, you're going to see a reduced berry strength output. Now, all of this analysis so far has ignored one important factor, and that's because, well, we don't know the exact rate of this happening just yet, we can only guess, but I haven't actually included the chance for great success. Now, in case you haven't seen the great success for Mimikyu, let me show you this clip submitted by Ping Shiro. When a great success happens, a berry actually falls onto Mimikyu, and then its disguised form becomes busted form. And it's not until this busted form gets fixed by a sleep session can another great success happen again. Also, all of these berries are being auto-fed to Snorlax, so in other words, you don't get a choice on keeping those berries within Mimikyu's inventory. Which means 2 problems. One is you can't carry these berries to a new week, because once triggered, they are all being fed to Snorlax, similar to charge strength. And 2, you can't use it for overstacking either. To begin with, Mimikyu cannot be overstacked that well because once its own inventory is full, even if these berries were being left within its inventory, another skill cannot be triggered. This is just a normal mechanic of the game, so it's not like Helper Boost or Extra Helpful S. It simply is not useful for overstacking. Of course, if you really want to bring those berries to a new week, the trick is to not collect the trigger itself. You can sleep with Mimikyu, wake up on Monday morning to trigger the skill. But that's true for other Pokemon as well. Now, everything about our analysis so far will change based on how high the rate of great success is. Right now, we are estimating about a 20% rate. From my own studies, it's about 15% chance of great success. Rainonix has shown about an 80% chance for great success. So let's just say about 20% for simplicity. Each time a great success is triggered, we actually get 3 times the amount of berries. So if 2 out of 10 triggers gives you 3 times the berries, 8 out of 10 triggers gives you 1 times the berry, the total expected outcome is 40% more berries per trigger. There is a catch though, is that this great success rate does not include any downtime, because there is a downtime when Mimikyu is in busted form. When Mimikyu has triggered great success once, it cannot trigger again until you do your sleep session. So these numbers, this 40% increase, would not be accurate unless what you do is once you've triggered great success, you bench your Mimikyu, you put it into your Pokebox until you've done your session, then you bring it back out, then these numbers can be more accurate. So using it in this way would maximize the potential of Mimikyu. But now if we add 40% extra strength to every number we saw earlier, I've added 40% to these numbers that we saw earlier, but just take this with a grain of salt because we don't know the exact crit rate yet. It could be 15%, it could be 18%, but let's just for simplicity take the crit chance to be 20%, we have to add 40% strength to our calculations. So if all berries were favorite, we're looking about 15,000 strength. If only dragon berries are favorite, we're looking about 11 to 12,000 strength. And if none of the berries are favorite, we're still looking about a 6.4 thousand strength, which isn't too bad. Because if we go back to Ampharos, at the very least, at 6,400 strength, we're beating a level 6 charge strength Ampharos, and that's incorporating the fact that Ampharos has a higher trigger rate. It loses out to an Ampharos at level 7, but the good news is that once you get favorite berries for a portion of the berries, either because of your teammates or because of Bluke berries, its own berries, the numbers improve quite drastically, making Mimikyu better than Ampharos in several situations as long as favorite berries are matched as much as possible. Okay, now let's take a look at some Pokemon that Mimikyu might need to compete with their best stats. So once again, I've chosen Ampharos versus Mimikyu and we're using the Rainonix calculator for comparison. Now do note that at this stage, we do not have the crit rate, the great success rate of this guy's Berry Burst. But what we can do is we can simply, in our head, add 40% to this strength for the crit rate for now, for a fair comparison, because Mimikyu can great success, whereas other skills cannot. So multiplying 58,000 by 1.4 for that 40% boost gives us 81,000 strength, which is about 23,000 strength more than what's being indicated here. I've set the calculator to max productions for 24 hours to see who produces the most strength, and I've set Old Gold Power Plant as the favorite berries. In other words, both Ampharos Mimikyu will get favorite berry treatment, as will Banette in a moment. I've given Mimikyu helping bonus, skill trigger, and berry finding. I did try some other combinations, but it appears that berry finding is going to be more useful, especially in the favorite berry situations. And I gave it a main skill chance up nature. Similarly, I gave the same stats to Ampharos. For Banette, I used different stats because it's a berry specialist, so we'll want more speed, as much speed as possible. Now the total strength might seem very similar across all 3 species, but we should look at the bulk of the contributions. Without a doubt, Banette is still the clear winner for berry productions. Have a look at the amount of berries it farms. In other words, if you're unable to collect skills frequently enough, Banettes, just like many other berry specialists, remain the choice. For example, for a long overnight sleep, so that you can get those sneaky snacking with more berries as opposed to less berries. But if you are able to have every single skill collected during the day within a 24-hour time frame and the additional great success rate, Mimikyu will in total produce more strength than either Ampharos or Banette at Old Gold Power Plant. In contrast, Charge Strength M of Ampharos and Charge Strength S of Banette, both of which, by the way, just for fair comparison, I've given main seeds to go all the way to level 7. These strengths do not improve whether or not there's favorite berry, which is where we see the difference. Because had I turned off favorite berry, so we're going to go over to the settings here, I actually turn off the 2 favorite berries and see who would actually be a better generalist. So if you're not at a favorite berry area, well, look at how far Mimikyu falls. And once again, it's because both its main skill and its berry production relies heavily on the fact that it's favorite berry. Now, this is the production analysis of the calculator on Rainanex's website, meaning that the extra berries from the teammate are just assumed to be blueberries in this case. You can actually use team analysis if you want to combine other berry types into the calculations. But these are the 2 extremes of scenarios for Mimikyu. It can either be, well, quite bad relative to the other 2 Pokemon that it's competing with, or if it is favorite berry, then it can be quite strong. Remember, we're gonna add about 23,000 strength to this total strength because crit chance has not been incorporated into the calculator yet. But you can see it's quite a bit better than either Ampharos or Banette. It would be even better if the teammates are dragon berries or any berry that's stronger than blueberries, but also at the same time being favorites. So Mimikyu is more like a berry specialist because it relies on favorite berries being matched, and its Pokemon level should be as high as possible. Whereas Ampharos remains to be a generalist. Irrespective of which area you take Ampharos to, it will still produce a respectable amount of strength. Mimikyu should simply not be used if none of the berries are going to be favorite berries. But for free-to-play players, it just doesn't seem realistic to be investing that many main seeds, that many biscuits, and the relatively rare candies for Mimikyu when Shuppet exists and is easier to hunt. You're gonna have an easier time looking for better stats in a Shuppet than you are in a Mimikyu. But what does the future hold for Mimikyu? Because, as I said earlier, berry strength is a function of the Pokemon's level. We know the Pokemon level will one day hit level 100. We have no idea how high skill levels will go, and even if skill levels get expanded, can you actually afford raising those skill levels? So in a way, moving forwards, as more level caps get unlocked, because Berry Burst gets better with both the skill level and the Pokemon level, it could become even stronger in the future with the planned Pokemon level unlocks. Of course, the developers can rebalance the game by making Charge Strength M on Ampharos stronger for each skill level, or create a new level, level 8, where it's significantly stronger, where it's even stronger than before. And can any other Pokemon actually get this main skill, Disguise Berry Burst? Because Disguise is a unique ability of Mimikyu in the main games. No other Pokemon has this ability. Some Pokemon have something similar, and some Pokemon do have a similar ability, but it's not exactly the same. Ice-Q, for example, has a similar ability. And I guess I'm just noticing something strange with the recent new main skills. They all have these really long names with brackets. If we look at Stockpile, it's actually called Stockpile Charge Strength S. The Stockpile itself refers to the part where it flips a coin between Stockpile and Spit Up. It will either give you Charge Strength or hold on to that Charge Strength for the next trigger. Moonlight Charge Energy S, the Charge Energy S refers to the self-healing of Umbreon. The Moonlight refers to the RNG spillover to other Pokemon. Now in Mimikyu's case, we don't know which of these terms mean which part of the skill, because it's not like we've had Berry Burst before. Does Berry Burst refer to maybe the first lot of berries, so the self berries, making Disguise refer to the second slot of berries? Or does Disguise refer to the crit chance, because when we saw the animation of the crit chance, a berry dropped on Mimikyu and caused the busted form. So then if there were ever a skill called just Berry Burst, it's basically this skill but without a chance to great success. And I just thought it was interesting to mention that because I thought it was interesting to mention all of this because it may give us an idea of what kind of skills to expect in the future. Thank you for watching, guys. Let me know in the comment section below whether you guys think Mimikyu is going to be worth your investments.